On the Cut. Reflections on life, work and trade on some of the main canals of England in earlier years of the century. The image of a family drifting along the canals of England at the height of summer on a traditional narrowboat with brass-banded chimneys and paintings of roses and castles has become a powerful and popular one. But people who had the real experience of working those boats present a somewhat different picture.
They're now that a pair of Wellingtons than nothing. Well, it doesn't matter what trade you're in, I was in with the acid. We had gloves and that, and uniforms. But a lot of trades you could mention, but not the canal. They hadn't a pair of Wellingtons, and that's the one place where they should have had some gear.
Human nature. The most silly people on God's earth, what we went through for them 2 days, and that was in that snow blizzard of 1942. On them 2 days being in that snow blizzard, when your horses can't walk or anything, and nearly ruined health-wise my mother and father, but that particular year, when you see no water, no hedgerows, not heavy snow, but just fine blizzard, it wiped everything out, and that was the longest spell we were ever tied up, was through a snow blizzard and not through ice. And that was 1942 on the Golden Canal, that one was. Any type of job can be hard, but similarly like in boating, you've got to set yourself a certain standard of time, what distance you're going, to get there to a certain time. I mean, the Macclesfield Canal, we could only do 1.5 trips a week, which in a fortnight is 3 trips. Now, it doesn't sound much to people, 3 boatloads in a fortnight. But when you calculate the hours up in that fortnight, and then you've got emptying when you get there, you're talking a total of over 250 hours in 14 days.
Oh, winter time, murder. I once remember a fitter working on a boat, Loon, I think it was Loon. It was in Totlock at Wigan, and there's a boat coming up about 4 locks further behind, like. So, fitter said, "I'll knock you a minute," and he dropped his spanner on engine room floor, and it sounded hollow. Because a boat, that, like, if it's in water, how can I explain it? Well, if it's in water, you drop a spanner on deck. You can tell you're in water. But this one, it echoed. So he run out that engine room, and his mate had actually dropped the lock, and the boat was still stuck up in the ice.
Did he get away with it?
Oh, he got away. So all I had to do was refill the lock.
It could have been a disaster, couldn't it?
Well, just imagine, like a full load dropping into a locked chamber.
Well, we had to help as husbands with the side cloth, thread the through them, the rope through them, and then sometimes I'd help my husband tie them. Got on the planks and tied them with him. I've helped him to load flints, china clay and china stone. I've helped him to wheel the barrow, used the shovel alongside my husband. We've loaded 25 ton on his own.
The boat as a place of work. And one of the tools of the trade needed to do that work was the windlass to open locks. Most old boatmen that I've met have saved their windlasses.
The windlass itself, it'll fit anywhere up this canal, up the Trent and Mersey. But if you went into Birmingham, you'd have to put it away.
You've bothered to keep it for a long time. Is there a special reason?
Well, it's your brother, isn't it?
How would you recognise it amongst other windlasses? Because to me it's the same shape that I've seen so many times.
That's right. Go by these notches.
There are little patterns of 5 punch marks.
That's right.
On this windlass. Yes, as I look, there's a set of 5 there.
Yeah.
And another double set of 5 on the other face there.
Yeah.
And some little side notches as well.
There is, yeah.
Did boatmen use that as a system for identification of windlasses?
Oh, we did. We did. I don't know whether anybody else did or not, but we did.
So you'd know your windlass anywhere?
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. Go and pick it out of 1,000.
On the Trent and Mersey Canal, windlasses made at wheel lock had a good reputation. On the Grand Union, a Sam Tomlinson windlass from his smithy at Long Buckby near to Daventry was one that was well thought of.
They were made at Tomlinson's again. His wife done the dressmaking, and all his windlasses they were made solid. What goes on the paddle, they were made solid and then cut out. You see, most of them weren't, and those windlasses never split. Yes, they were about one as good a windlass, I should say, you'd get on the canal.
Why do you say that?
Well, I think every boatman in general is used to have them in that day and age said the same thing. And you could pick a Buckby windlass out of 100.
A windlass that was strong and did not split was of particular value to that last speaker. He had been a lock keeper on the Buckby flight since the early 1940s and had reason to be keen on safety because of an accident he sustained when he was a narrowboatman working in London's Regent Dock.
We was loading rubber for Leicester, and the light of what we were loading out of had run out. They were bringing another one in, and I'd got a rope and a plank tipped me up. And I just went backwards in the boat, and that was it. That was as much as I remembered about it, yeah.
And the result of it was what?
Fractured skull and concussion of the brain. I was off some time, about 12 months, I should think. And I still felt the results of it for 4 or 5 years after, you know. Went up Darley Street 2 or 3 times, well, about 5 times, I think.
Up to that point, had you thought of the canal as a dangerous place to work?
Oh, no, we just took it, in its stride sort of thing, yeah. Yes, we just took it as, it was part of our job and that was it.
Part of the job. Here's a Leicester boatman's reply to a question about his own personal accident record during his working years on the canal. I'd noticed that he showed signs of a badly damaged end to one of his fingers. Over the years, he'd almost forgotten the original incident in Atherstone.
No, only one for that. The windlass slipped off the paddle. The windlass come off the paddle, bit of frosty morning, and that's what it done. And I was going to pull that piece off. My mum come over and collared me and held it like that. Until my dad got there. Of course, it was numbed. I never felt anything.
You would have lost the top of your finger, though.
I'd have lost that piece there. My mum said that I'm a needle and cotton. We're miles from anywhere, as you know, in Harriston.
Now, here's a different kind of accident involving a horse.
I was going along the bank, and it run, and I stuck to it, and under a bridge hole, it went in the canal and took me with it. And I lay on the bottom of the canal, and the horse stood on my leg, and I was on my back. I hit his leg to make him get off mowing, and when I stood up, I was just up to my chin in water. And the horse went so far down the canal and turned around and come back and stood again me. I gave him a hit the side of the head. He jumped out of the canal onto the bank, under the bridge, run down the canal bank so far, and stopped, turned around and looked at me. And that was the only time as I thought I had it.
Looking through a pile of photographs in Leighton Buzzard, I noticed a curious picture of a tug from the 1920s or 1930s at a tunnel mouth. The odd feature was that the tug was almost obliterated by smoke from the tunnel, and the conversation that followed underlined another common canal hazard of those years. To be towed through a tunnel was quite expensive and not a little dangerous.
It used to cost you about 4 bob with a loaded boat, and with an empty one, that was 2 shillings.
There's a lot of smoke in that picture coming from
the
tunnel.
Yes.
Why should that be?
Well, you see, what it is, what they nearly always used to do, they always used to stoke up the old boiler just before they went in the tunnel. Seeing that's how you started to come through. Some of them nearly got suffocated that time.
Here's a recollection of Harecastle Tunnel in North Staffordshire by a boatman who now lives in Leicestershire.
One particular chap who was tunnel keeper there for many, many years, he'd come along and collect tickets, and if you had a fire, he would say that you put the fire out or there's no smoke. And Kidsgrove End in particular, that is built up, and it's going to be a bit of a rough day to get air blowing through there. And of course when the tug stopped we had to go through, and it was still closed on a Sunday, which meant boats collected there to go in on a Monday morning, uphill boats especially, going into the potteries. And there was an occasion when, you know, there was, I think I was a sixth, somewhere around that, 16 engine to go in, and there was lots of boilers. There was a few of the old fellas, Morton Clayton, they got fairly big loads on, going probably to Nottingham or somewhere there. And of course they was taking, it was a bit of a struggle. But I think when there's a lot of boats in the tunnel, a narrow tunnel like that, it is difficult to get them all through and keep them all going.
At Monday morning, what an awful position to be in.
Well, I was second to last. The last one went back because they had a baby, and he went back. And I had a daughter, I had a little girl. We ended up with her on the cabin floor with a damp blanket over her, you know. And I was outside trying to stop all the corners and nicks in the doorways with a scarf around my face, and you felt as though you could cut the smoke in there, you know.
Because you've still got to look and steer, haven't you?
Well, no, we didn't particularly have to. But you can't steer very well in Near Calamity, as it happens with loaded boats. You can't really. And empty boats, you can't see over the boat. You couldn't then see over the boat to steer because the tunnel was so low. Well, I've never been in a tunnel like Near Calamity. It was a bit unique then, because it was at that again. It was at the time when it was falling. You see, now they tell me a lot of it's been hired and that was. That's this particular time I'm talking about. Air Castle was probably at the lowest point it had ever been.
And it was a danger point in your estimation?
Well, yes. Well, panic. I was a bit panicky. You know, I suppose I probably shouldn't have been, but I was. I think quite a few more. And I say this chap went back. He came in so far and then went back. And of course, you get to this point where you think, well, what's going to happen next? What are you going to do? Well, I've still got to come through here. But I'd made my mind up there and then that I'd never come in again with them many engines. I would say no, and they'd have to let so many through at once or whatever they. You see, don't forget, we're boatmen. We can't sort of make decisions on what could be done. We think something should be done, and we badger somebody to do it, but we had no idea what. I mean, when they put them fans at Air Castle, it was the biggest surprise of my life. I was delighted with it as well, but you know, I never thought anything like that could be done.
The wife of the last speaker had her own recollections of family tragedy and personal injury in the same area.
I had a sister killed at, Etruria. Used to be a drawbridge there. Well, she got chucked off horse there, and because she hit the back of her head and died. Then
How old was she when that happened?
7. And then I was 14 when I had a bad accident in Stoke-Top Lock.
How did that come to be?
Well, have you ever heard of what we call it strapping? You know, you go into a lock and there used to be like a big stump on a gate, and you put your snub around and it slows the boat from hitting the bottom gates, and that. I got, the handle, handrail. It took me right over, and that was it. I had about 6 months with that, going to the hospital every day, and then, because my mother got fed up then, she said that was it, and then I was 14 then. Well, I was nearly 14. I was about 3 months off. If it had been 14, you see, in them days, if you got it, you got what you call compensation. But, you see, I wasn't quite 14. So we left, and then we went on the bank. And then I left school at 14 and went to work on a farm. Outside job.
But you were hurt while you were working?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I had 50 stitches in that finger there, because that was all twisted over me. My hands, and my wrist was broken, my elbow was broken, all the finger ends was hanging off.
But were you able to draw a wage at all in those times of work?
No, we never got a penny. There was only my dad really got paid.
At Gargrave, near to Skipton in Yorkshire, a near calamity at a lock was recalled by a lock keeper. It had involved an elderly boatman who'd become used to taking shortcuts.
Old Isaac. John was about 5, 6 year old was John, I think. And this old fellow with clogs, because they all wore clogs in those days, bargees. And he came to our lock, and he wound this paddle up on this end. He went over the lock, but it'd been raining. And Father said to him one day, and so did Grandad, he said, Isaac, one of these days you're going to get into trouble on that slippery lock. Go round. Oh, this is quicker. He got to that end, he wound it up, and he disappeared. John came running. He said, Mother. I said, what? What's the matter now? He said, Isaac wound the paddle up, and he's gone down, and I can't find him. He hasn't come up. I said, right, come on. So I ran out the other side of the lot, ran the other side. I've closed it down. He was in the bottom. Anyway, we got him out with one of the hooks, and we gave him some clothes. We brought him in and dried him and gave him hot drink. And he was in a hurry. He mustn't wait. He wanted to get off and get his things. And a week later, he came down again with another load. And he came across with a brown paper parcel. And his daughter had washed everything or cleaned them, the suit and the lot, brought them back perfect. And he says, come here, young lad. And he gave him £1. And every time he came down, he came to bring a present for John. He said, I'll never forget that lad saving my life.
The canals of the day were dangerous working environments, but very few boat people I recorded spoke at all of safety equipment. A Wigan boatman on the Leeds and Liverpool canal said that the broad boats carried nothing to meet emergencies.
We had those on the ambulance box on the boat, like brass for anything like that, like we used to have to go to the police and such like that, you see, straight away, and get in touch with them. But we nothing under ourselves on the boats.
It's amazing talking to men who worked on the narrow canal system, how often they were, well, able to tell me about accidents, personal accidents that they'd either seen or been involved in directly. Was this a relatively safe canal?
Yes, I would say it was relatively safe. You was probably careful, like you looked after you, something like that. But it was a pretty safe canal, take it on the whole, yes.
That speaks well for the design of locks and paddles and gear.
Yes, well, you see, with this canal, then, like where the tail end of the lock, it was a footbridge crossover. So you weren't supposed to go over locks, although we did do. I mean, so 3 skips in across the other side of the lock, you know. But the footbridge was there. You weren't supposed to do it, and it was really generally safe locks to go along, you know. Yes.
That design remains to this day.
That's
it's
right,
one of
yes.
the most noticeable features, isn't it?
That's right, yes, the footbridge is like that.
And it's a safety feature.
A safety, very safe, yes. That's when people getting drowned in the canal, you know, you might see a body and you'd pull it to the side and then trap a place. But up first, when you come, you know, you used to pull them out, put them on the bank and cover them up just like that and then rig for a place. But afterwards, you see, we learned that it's better to leave them in the canal on the side and just tie them there and drink for a place to go, because when you pulled them out of the canal, you had to go to the inquest, you see. And when you went there, you nearly lost a day's pay and never got nothing for it.
A name mentioned several times in connection with health and safety by boat people from the Grand Union Canal was that of Sister Mary Ward.
She was a lady she'd help anyone, and she'd come out, it don't matter what time we wanted her out, if we pulled up there, no moored up, she'd come out and look after you. She saved my husband's life 3 times.
What were the circumstances?
Well, he had pneumonia. And my daughter, she had carbuncles all on her arms, and she's got those well for us.
Where did she live that she could keep an eye on you?
On the canal side, Stoke Bruin. She'd help anyone on the canal. She's come out with a candle in a lantern, as we might say, in the old days, to get on our boat to see to us.
Household and herbal remedies were, up to a point, popular because they were convenient for people on the move. But a Daventry boatman recalled an incident in which he'd felt it unavoidable to call on the help of a doctor.
We got our first baby, Brian, and he had the measles. We called it Leighton. And the woman said there, Leighton Lock, she said, your son's got the measles. We come down to Finney Stratford Lock here. I went for the doctors. Went in, rung the bell. Yes, what can I do for you? I said, I'm sorry to disturb you, doctor. It was late at night, about 9 or 10 o'clock. I said, could you come down to the canal side to my baby? I said, he's full of red spots. This was our first child. I said, yes, are you off a boat? I said, yeah. Sorry, he said, can't come. I said, the money's here, here's the money, I'll give it you now. Come to my baby. He said, no, boat people are scruffs, he said, and they're bad payers. I said, will you come down to that child? He said, no, sorry, not to boat people. Come in the morning. I said, my child could be dead. He wouldn't come, so you know what I done? I went to the police station, explained my case. I said to the police, hurry up. I said, I've been to the doctor, he wouldn't do so and so and this, that and the other. I said, here's the money, look. I showed it him, he refused. He said, he told us boat people was dirty and scruffy. She was in the morning, I said, my kid could be dead. He said, hang on a minute. He just put his hat on and come down, he said, jump in. He went and knocked on the door. He said, go and knock. He went to bed. He got up. He said, what is it? I said, will you come to my baby, please? Don't like the looks of it. He said, I've told you before, boat people are scruffs. He said, they're bad payers. The policeman looked out and he said, hey, get down to this man's child. And he brought him down in the car. He said, and he hauled him to stand alongside the boat. And he did do.
Tragedy could strike in the most unexpected ways, as this Rickmansworth boatman remembers.
When you was on the canal, you see, I mean, probably in the summertime, I mean, you was watching other little tiny things just for attraction, and accidents can happen anywhere. And there was one time at Salisbury, which we call Stoke Hammond, that's 3 miles the other side of Leighton Buzzard. It was going along there, and we just got away from it. We met another pair of boats coming towards Leighton Buzzard, and we was going towards Finney Stratford, which is on the way to Birmingham. And they had a cargo of coal on, and the girl was steering the motorboat, you see, and her mother was on the butty boat, and there was a going up, and the rope broke. The girl reversed. She was reversing, she stepped back, and the tiller swung round because the suction of the water brought the rod around, you see, knocked her overboard and into the propeller, and it killed her.
How did boat people themselves view their situation? The next speaker recalls taking a pessimistic view, using war effort as a sort of yardstick.
It was pretty dangerous, like, but we didn't recognise it. And one thing has always grabbed us, you know. Even during the war, you know, we weren't recognised. A boatman, I reckon, like in the early days when I first done the canal, a boatman, the farm labourer, were the two lowest paid workers that were going. Well, the farm labourer, as time went on, he got himself way up, but the boatman never did, you know. Nobody recognised the boatman. And we were travelling all through the war. And we had a raid in Nelson Dock, Liverpool, in 1940. He came over one night and he thought everything had a rotten apple and all salt at us the next morning. And when we'd led at 4 o'clock when all clear went. Anyhow, we worked all through that, but we were never recognised. A boatman to me always seemed to be one of the lowest of the low.
And to close, 2 further wartime memories, one with facts and the other with a little bit of fancy that makes light of what was clearly a very tough life.
When I was a youth, you know, very young, we used to hear the sirens go, and the parents had to rush you off to the air raid shelters and to protect you, you know, against the bombing. And when all clear went, you come back home to your boat.
But there wouldn't be many air raid shelters near the canal.
Well, there would if you was in a place like Birmingham. That was one of the main things. Manchester, you know, Wolverhampton. There was like situated. Otherwise, you had to take potluck.
We was by Wolverhampton, and we was tied up at the lock.
Near the Boatman Port aerodrome.
That's right. And the German planes come over and bombed all the aerodrome and everything. Machine gunned us. Yeah. Knocked all little holes in the boat's name. Yeah. Terrible it was.
And what time of day was that?
On a Sunday afternoon.
Sunday dinner. And you just finished baking it. This up your pies.
That's what they said, yeah. Said he was after me pies.
Taking part in today's edition of On the Cut were Tom Clark, Len Beardmore, Brian Robinson, Agnes Hollinshead, Bert Bailey, Henry Grantham, Jack Monk, Bob Brown, Jack Wilson, Mr. and Mrs. Reg Barnett, Mabel Lupton, Tom Almond, Mr. and Mrs. Alf Best, Jack Kent, John Blunn, and Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Atkins and family. In the next edition, Bankside workers talk about their years on the Cut.